But what about how you guys said a man is more commonly going to be with average 6? It's like a really attractive dude than a woman.
But that's the thing, that women will tend to be able to look outside of their league. And that's the way that women date. They're hypergamous daters, which means that they look above in terms of the social hierarchy, because they want a guy who earns more than them, is obviously bigger, stronger, more competent, can look after them, can protect them. And men, we tend to be okay with looking down a little bit as long as she respects us. And there's a lot that comes with respect, but just for the short answer, as long as they respect us.
Is it like a dominance thing for you guys? Like you feel like more dominantly, you feel like you could lead somebody that's making less?
If you're a woman, you definitely should try and make a man feel dominant. Absolutely. And even if it's just in everyday life, oh, I can't get this from the top, even you can get it if you really want to. Can you come get it for me? Oh, you're so strong. All of that sort of stuff makes men feel respected. And but this is the thing, like dominance can be obviously associated with negative connotations, because, if you're dominant in a negative way, then you're going to be sort of really horrible and really mean to someone. But if you're dominant in a way that you can still have the person's best interests in mind, what's wrong with that? Do you want a dominant man? Oh yeah, I do. I want a man that can lead me. And so,
like when you were saying that, I'm like, I think that is why women do tend to look for someone, like you said, that is in a hierarchy than, other men. Or maybe if they see a man that's on their level, that's why they're looking like, oh, he's not really on my level. If that makes sense.
Say it again, sorry?
Like if they're looking at a man like who they're saying statistically, like look-wise, financial-wise, whatever, y'all are compatible, like you're on the same level, but women are looking at them like looking down, it's because that aspect of wanting someone that's smarter or more financially stable or something like that's going to teach me something to lead me.
But the problem that it highlights, though, is that with dating apps, this has changed the way that men and women interact in the intersexual dynamics completely. Because if you're a woman, in the olden days, what you would have to do is you would have to find a man who's in your town. So you would have a much smaller pool of options, right? But nowadays, if you log on to a dating app, or if you're on Instagram and you have an open profile and you post cute photos and you do some sort of cursory marketing of yourself, then you can have guys from all around the world sort of sliding into your DMs, and then automatically that opens up this massive pool. And then what are you going to do? You're going to look to the very top of that pool, to the guys that you like the most, and be like, this is where I stand. Right? This is the guys that I want to date. And then anything below that is not going to interest you. And then what's worse is that when you get older and you date a guy who you consider below, you'll end up thinking, Kevin's nice, but Jermichael, the quarterback, he was really good back in the day when I was in my 20s, And it's called being alpha widowed.
You call being what?
Alpha widowed. Oh. It's when you've experienced the alpha male in the past, and then you're with another guy and he doesn't have those same sort of traits, whether it be like sexually or his charisma or whatever, and then you pine for that guy. I think that's honestly a massive reason why a lot of marriages don't work these days, is because of the experiences that people have, and then they end up pining for somebody in their past or aspects of different people.
Well, I think that when it comes to divorces, it comes down to the way that men and women are designed and the way they communicate with each other, because women and men, they tend to give what they want to receive. And so there tends to be a lot of like conflict and struggle, because men are expecting women to, and women are expecting men to be a certain way that they're not, and they don't try and understand men. And then women and men...
Wait, hold on. Can you make it relevant to his point?
Yeah,
because we're having a vague conversation about marriage now. He's talking about a phenomenon where if a woman, because you've only been with 2 men, right? So I don't know if you were alpha. I mean, the guy you married, you were a virgin. So you were not in a situation in your marriage to have been alpha widowed.
That doesn't make sense to me.
Okay. Like as in you had a really good
Let me break it down really simply. At some point in your past, you date a remarkable man. Maybe he's outside of your league. He's really good looking, really good in bed. He's rich, whatever the metric is. He doesn't give you commitment, but you date him for 3 months and he best sex you've ever had. Then the guy who you can actually get commitment from doesn't meet any of those criteria. Now you've had a taste of the good life, the good dick. and now you're going to settle for Joe Schmo.
No, but
that's what we're talking
It's
about.
the
I'm
old saying,
disagreeing with that
ignorance is
because-
bliss.
What are you disagreeing with?
Because I'm disagreeing that he's saying that's a lot of the reasons why couples end in divorce, and I'm saying I don't think that's a lot of the reasons why. I don't think that they experience something better and now they always pine for that. I think they're not.
Why do you think that virgins stay together for longer than people who have slept around?
Well, I do, because their pool has been exposed more, and they have a lot more experiences.
That's what I said. Yeah. So if you've got 10 ex-boyfriends and Jimmy was tall and Billy was handsome and Kevin was I keep saying Kevin. I can't come up with any new names. Darren was rich, and then all of a sudden, when you're settling down, you want all of those things in one man.
So you're
but then-
saying women settle?
What do you mean? I'm saying when you settle down.
Right. So do
yeah.
women settle when they find that mediocre man? Do
no,
they settle?
they think they're settling.
They think they're settling. It's a good way to put it. Yeah.
So,
But it's actually the guy who's your equivalent. But because because women can get access to men sexually, maybe even like short-term sexual access to men that are outside of their league, they're like, oh, now this guy down here who is actually my equal, I've had this guy, but he won't commit to me. But like I've had him, I've had that experience. It's like if you lived in a mansion all your life and then you go live in a shack, you're like, fuck. That mansion was way better. And so it's just, look, it's
also a reality check. Like, we have to live in reality. We have to understand that we are, like, those women, they got a reality check of this is their pool. So they have to accept that. They have to accept that that's
They
their...
don't, though.
So, but that's,
Well,
he's
until
saying
they're
that's
30.
a factor of divorce, and I just said I disagree.
Well, and one last thing on this like the widow concept. It's
Widow.
So
Who's
here's
a widow?
hold on.
Who's a widow?
Alpha.
It's
alpha
a
widow.
term.
It's the term
I feel
that
like
we're
we shouldn't
using.
even use it because it's just confusing.
I mean, it's a sort of like a red pill term, but basically just what it means is that you've had a guy or multiple guys who have certain characteristics and traits that you don't have in your guy that you actually settle down with. So then it means that the woman's always pining for those traits that he doesn't have, so hence pining for those men.
Yeah, and then one thing here on this, like in terms of the differentials, you might say like, oh, men can have that too. Not really, because here's why. Like, if me or Jake steps to a girl that's outside of our league, instant rejection. Like, we're instantly zeroed out. If I step to a girl and I'm like, I'm offering you sex, easy sex, I ain't getting nothing. I get nothing with a girl who's outside my league. I don't get a conversation. I don't get a date. I definitely don't get sex. But as a girl, if you make yourself sexually available to a guy who's outside your league, maybe it's not the case every single time you're going to get it, but you got a chance.
Chris Brown has fucked a lot of average girls, I'd say.
Yes.
Like, there's a lot of like NFL, NBA players that just be like hooking up with girls that they have no intention of ever having a relationship with. And so, yeah. Like,
And by the way, to your point, I'm not saying that it's the sole purpose for divorces. I'm saying that I think that in the modern world, considering the factors that we're talking about in terms of social media and the way that people date and they sort of play more fast and loose with sex and other intersexual dynamics, then that would be something that I think would be a major factor these days. But you're saying that you believe that like communication and different values is a major reason, or?
I think we don't seek to understand the opposite sex. So we don't seek to understand how.
Do you think do you think that tends to go both ways?
Yeah.
I think that to an extent it is true, but like the experiment that I ran at the start here, when I asked you all what you would do in your job interview, you guys gave pretty bad answers. You gave a pretty good answer, but the rest of you guys gave pretty bad answers, I'm not going to lie. And that actually shows that you guys don't really understand like what men actually want. Like, if you're put in that situation where you have to sell yourself, you actually don't know really how to sell yourself. Whereas men, the competition is greater. So if we want to acquire like a certain type of woman, which is very, very rare these days, then we have to really, really know the game. You know, we have to really understand how to achieve that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
sure.
Natasha's position on this, she wrote some pre-show notes, and if I've committed them to memory, you're talking about the table, what somebody brings to the table. Natasha doesn't believe in, is that fair to say? Like, women are the table. Is that fair?
That's not what I said. No.
Well, you said that if a guy were to ask a woman what she brings to the table, she just brings herself. It's her presence. Isn't that what you said?
I'm saying sort of to a point that I don't think if a man asks that question, they see the value in you to begin with if they're having to ask. But I'm saying that a man who is super secure, let's say financially, in his job, all of these things, it doesn't really matter what a woman brings to the table in terms of that. If she brings the attributes he's looking for, like she could be a waitress, she might not be financially stable, but if she brings the qualities that he's looking for, then that's enough for him. So I don't think she has to be of a certain like looks or of a certain like financial caliber. I think if she's bringing the attributes, like the qualities within herself, then I don't think that it matters like what she does to bring to the physical table.
Right. And so what you wrote in your notes was a man asking what you bring to the table is a major red flag. Him asking something like that just reveals his cards, that he isn't secure in where he is and that they harbor resentment for women. Insecure men tend to think that women have an easier time. And if I'm going to marry you, what will you provide for me? Meh. Ballers will marry someone from any walk of life, a waitress. It doesn't matter. So if he's a real provider and a man who's secure, he will not care about your standing, because for the right man, all you will have to do is exist. You can't see my qualities without that question. But I think men who are asking, don't worry about it. I think men who are asking what you bring to the table, they're not talking financially. They're not talking money. Yeah, but those are soy boys. Don't deal with them. They're saying like what you bring to the table outside of that.
Oh, I'm saying in like a financial sense, when I think men try to say like, oh, where are you at in your career?
Damien,
like what do you...
So when you're saying about bringing to the table, you're talking about in a financial sense.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Okay, well, I would actually agree with you then. That
I don't
men
think it matters
won't tend
as
to
much
care.
to men.
Yeah, but when we're talking about bringing what you bring to the table, though, it's sort of like the experiment that we ran before, where I said what qualities and attributes and what makes you different from other women.
I think that's what is more important to a man. Like I'm saying, if it's a financial question, I don't think that matters at all to a man, really.
I'd agree.
We did it.
Wow, that's
we
beautiful.
found one.
That was beautiful.
We got there.
Okay. Yeah. But like, let's say when the guy asks that question, what do you bring to the table? But he's not thinking about finances at all. Do you think that then it's a fair question?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I would ask for specification, like what they mean in terms of what I bring to the table. If they meant like financial stability or if they meant attributes, because I do think attributes matter in what you bring to the table on both ends. But I don't think, at least for a man, that the financial standing of a woman is that important compared to their physical and personal attributes.
All right, Natasha, you and me, we also have an agreement there.
Wow.
Don't care whatsoever. I mean, it's probably good if she's
Ideally,
not like in debt, like crazy debt or something.
What's important to me is if you're not lazy. If I think that you're somebody who, is able to just get out of the bed in the morning and just do things. And if I have to go away, say we've got kids and I've got to go away for a week for work, you're like, cool, I'm going to hold it down at home. I think lazy is extremely unattractive. That's why when I see these sort of like pampered princesses who just want to sit around all day and be provided for, it's like, no, thank you. No, you've got to pull your weight and show that you can hold it down,
How do you guys feel about 50-50?
No.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, if you're the provider, then it implies authority. And also, I don't want my wife one day going to work for another man, because obviously I don't think that there's any time when it's actually appropriate for your wife to be going and having close relationships with a man who's in a position of authority with her.